Florence, and I am a part of the core youth group at Emmaus, and I belong from Christ the King Parish. After coming here, when God decided to use me, so that is when, gradually we started with our fellowships out here, and then from here we, people started calling us from different schools and colleges. So when we see the youth, right, and when we see them, like, seeing us and getting inspired, like, even they get to go for confession, and then they also want to, pray like us and everything. So it does, give us that satisfaction that, even though we were useless, it is God who chose to make us useful to them, and spreading the light, spreading the love. So I would say his instrument he is using, and the satisfaction part, definitely it feels, when after the adoration and once the retreat ends, when we see them, how they came in the morning all sulking and just grumpy and sitting, and then when the retreat ends, they're all like happy, and we ask them, how did you feel, and they're all like, oh, we are very good right now. That is all that we look for as youth leaders. So I went for confession after 14 years. So when I had shared my testimony, there were few people just like me who did not go for confession for years, right? And post my testimony, it kind of gave them that courage to, go for the confession, even when they did not even know how to confess, right? Which was very similar to my situation, where after 14 years, when I went for confession, I didn't know what to say. So I was just sitting there and just looking at the priest and crying. So similarly, when they heard, so they also got the courage to, go and just sit for confession and just say whatever it was. So after, they did their confession, then they came back saying that, Didi, I heard that, you didn't confess for a long period of time. And then, so that was something that motivated me, and I also went for confession. So that made me more like, I know my purpose right now. So okay, so the thing was that, even though I grew up in Catholic family, right, post confirmation, I did not really feel like going to church. Even before confirmation, during like Holy Communion and all, I only went for Sunday classes. So I used to skip church. I used to wait outside the Sunday class in the school where it would happen, and then I would go along with my friends. So I was not someone, who was practicing faith, because in my family, my father, he was an atheist. So he never believed in all this, and because of that, mama and me, we used to make fun of mama. So, doing that, so she also never forced me. Now, after once confirmation happened, I stopped, because, in my group, I was more like, science and very open-minded. I would worship everything, like, I'm going for every other thing, but the church was not something that, kind of where I wanted to go. So I happened to get into depression and a lot of other things, anxiety attack. I had one of the worst, panic attack for years. So it's like, even if I'm sleeping, I would just, get this thing in my chest and I would wake up. So from there, and as usual, things go down in life. So mama got me here. And then that was forcefully, I had to come to pick up my mother. And after that, adoration was going on when I came to pick her up. And then everybody was, saying hallelujah, hallelujah. I was like, what's happening? Because I forgot what happens in church. I didn't go to church for years. And I was like, they changed their way of doing the prayers and everything or what. So I just sat there. And that was actually the day that something did touch. Post that, I started coming for retreats, little by little extending the time, coming before lunch, then from morning. And then with time, I heard Father was saying in one of the retreats, intercessory retreats, that if you actually want to pray for someone else, you need to be clean, you need to be pure. So from there, I was inspired for confession. And then while the retreat was going on, Father was like, you should go for confession. He was in general talking to everyone about confession. And I don't know what happened. After hearing him, I just got up, I went to the priest, I sat, I cried. I told him I do not know how to confess, no act of contrition, nothing. But that was the day that, changed me. So after my confession, when I came back and I was waiting for mass, and then I received my communion, so it felt very different. And from there, Lord brought me where I am today. So He's using me. Life has been very different. So my journey started with confession. Well, positives, I would say that, even through all the storms, right, we are still like, together, united, right. We can, like, both mom and I, we are strengthened through every hardship. Like the first thing, God loved me so much, the first thing that happened was He took my father away. So even after that, it didn't feel like, you know, that life has come to a stop. No. From there itself also, through every storm, he made sure mom and I, we were protected. And we've been strong since then. So that's been great.
Thank you so much.